This is an example of how to use the technology, specifically the TI 83 or 84 calculator, to determine the measures of center, measures of variation, and measures of position that we've been discussing. If you don't have a TI 83 or 84 calculator, you can download an emulator from the website wabbitemu.org. That's WABBITEMU.org. And that's the one that I've downloaded to use throughout this presentation. So if you don't have one, don't rush out and buy one. Just use this download. We're going to look at the example that we've been focusing on throughout this particular module. And the question, remember, is what is the average age in years of students taking classes on the GHC Cartersville campus in spring 2018? And the raw data is listed there for you. There's the responses from the 50 students that we surveyed. We have already taken that raw data and organized it into a grouped frequency distribution, and we realized that the majority of the students were younger than 30. We had very few that were over 40. We've made some observations on that. We also looked at the histogram and visually inspected it, and we said visually it appears to be skewed to the right. And we also said that we could estimate the average age to be between 16 and 28, where most of the data values fall. But we've not actually been able to answer the research question. And to do that, we need to calculate the descriptive statistics using the raw data. And guys, nobody in research, in statistical analysis nowadays does any of these calculations by hand. We all use technology, whether it's a calculator, a free website, a statistical software package, whatever. Nobody does these calculations by hand. So we're going to look at how to use the TI 83 or 84 calculator. And honestly, it's about a 3-step process. Step 1 is to clear the data, to erase anything that's in there. Step 2 is to enter the data. And then step 3 is to actually perform the calculations. So let's look at first the process you go through for clearing the data. To clear the data, you press the Stat button on the face of the calculator, which pulls up a menu. And on the menu, we're going to choose option 4, CLR list, which stands for clear list. We then have to indicate which one of the list we want to erase, or if there are multiple ones, we can clear multiple ones with a single command. To indicate the name of a list, you press the blue second button followed by the number of the list. So if I want to clear list 1, I'd press the blue second button followed by the number 1 and then press enter. And it clears it out. If I want to clear more than one list, I separate the list names by commas. Once I have the data cleared out, now I'm ready to enter the data related to the question at hand. Again, we go back to Stat under the Edit menu, and this time we're going to actually edit or enter the data. So we select option number 1 by pressing 1, and you'll notice what comes up on the screen is sort of like or looks similar to a spreadsheet. We enter our data into a single list in a column, regardless of how it's presented to us. So I would begin to enter the data. I would start at the beginning, 54, enter, 22, enter, 20, enter, 19, enter, and so forth until all of my data values are entered. If I needed to enter a second data set, I could move over to list 2 and enter that one. I can also put in a third one. You can put in multiple lists at the same time. I kind of prefer to have one list at a time unless I need more than one, so that I don't get confused about which one to use for the question. With a single command that I'm going to show you in just a minute, the calculator calculates virtually all of the descriptive statistics you need. It gives you the sample mean, the sample standard deviation, the population standard deviation, the sample size, the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. So here's how there are a couple of statistics, however, that the calculator does not actually calculate, but it does provide the needed information for those. They are the mode, the range, the variance, and the interquartile range. And you'll see here on the slide that I have listed the formula for each of those. And each of those pieces of information is given by the calculator command. So here's the command. We go back to stat. We are doing statistics after all. We're going to arrow to the right, highlighting the calc option, which stands for calculate, because now we want to do some calculations. And we choose option number one variable stats. I only have one data set, and it only represents one variable. So it's one variable stats. And then I have to tell the calculator where the data is located. Where did you put the information that it needs to use? We happen to have put it into list 1, which is actually the default. But if you put it in a different location, you simply press the blue second button and the number of the list that you put it into. Then we arrow down using our down arrow button 2 times to highlight the word calculate, and we press enter so that the calculator executes the command. In almost an instant, then you get the results for that analysis. And you'll see that there on the screen. And there are so many results that it presents that you do have to scroll up and down the screen to make sure that you see all of the results. So you want to record your results, and then using those results, calculate the remaining descriptive statistics. The mode, which value occurred the most. The range, which is the maximum minus the minimum. The variance, which is the square of the sample standard deviation or the square of the population standard deviation. And then finally, the interquartile range, which is the third quartile minus the first quartile. And again, you can actually use your calculators to do that addition and subtraction and squaring, okay? But you actually have to manually do those calculations. The 5-number summary, which remember is the minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and the maximum is the 5-number summary. And we use that 5-number summary to create a box plot. And I'm going to see if I can sketch that off for you. Here at the end, on the right-hand side, you would have your maximum value, which for us is 54. On the right-hand side, you would have the minimum value. Oops, excuse me. Kind of jumped on me there. Okay, you would have the minimum, and for us, that was 17. Then you kind of imagine some sort of measurement scale. This is like a number line. And you want to indicate where quartile 1, the median, quartile 3 would be. So if I kind of imagine, the minimum is 17. So then I'm going to have just a little bit over is going to be my quartile 1, which is 19, which also happens to be the median. Doesn't always happen there. Usually the median's a separate number. And then my quartile 3 is 24. And you actually, to get your box plot, draw a box around quartile 1. Let's see if I can get there. From quartile 1 to quartile 3. So let's see. From quartile 1 to quartile 3. Well, it doesn't want to draw for me. Okay, so you draw a box between quartile 1 and quartile 3. That's why it's called a box plot. Okay, so here's our box. Okay, and then you have your minimum and your maximum. Notice how the box is on the low end, which is an indication that it is skewed to the right, which we saw with our histogram. We can also then kind of visually inspect the box plot and also verify some things. We now can determine the average age is approximately 23. We can verify that the distribution is skewed to the right by comparing the mean, the median, and the mode. And we can also determine that there are a few outliers on the high end of the distribution using the algebraic formula for outliers.